Nuketown. It is probably the most iconic and probably the most famous Call of Duty map of all time. And with a new Black Ops game coming out this year, the beta that's been going on over the past weekend, Nuketown is surely making a return. However, there is a massive twist with Call of Duty Black Ops 6, because this year we got the origin story to Nuketown. And of course, as you guys know, I like to dive into the story of Call of Duty. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you a bit of the history of Nuketown, where it is going in Black Ops 6, and the new origin story that's not coming through Black Ops 6, but rather coming through Warzone. So Nuketown was first introduced in Call of Duty Black Ops 1, and a few things stood out about this. Number one, it was a very tiny map, and the color scheme of this map was very different than everything else that we saw in that game. And as it turns out, this one already had an interesting story as to why the developers made it. The rumor is that this map was originated from the movie Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. There's a scene in that movie where Indy, or Harrison Ford, is kind of going through this town when he realizes this is a fake town set up to test nukes. You can see several things that are recognizable from the Call of Duty Black Ops map, including various different mannequins, fridges, and the entire style that we are looking at here with this kind of 1950s, 1960s era suburban town. Now, it wasn't just only the small nature and aesthetic of the map, but also the Easter eggs on these maps that solidified them as fan favorites throughout the Black Ops series. Now, as we go through the various maps, I'm going to do this rather quickly, but I just want you to pay close attention to the settings of these maps. So the very first Nuketown was designed after a test site constructed in the United States in the 1950s to test nuclear bombs. So in other words, this kind of like 1950s suburban town with mannequins to see what a nuke would do to them. Now, moving into Black Ops 2, in other words, Nuketown 2025. Now, most people assume that this map takes place in 2025, but that is not the case. This is a 1960s style town, but made to look like the town of the future. So in other words, it was designed in the 60s, but designed to what they thought a town would look like in the year 2025. So to briefly summarize this, the Black Ops 1 Nuketown was designed after the 1950s style home and town. The Black Ops 2 is in the 1960s, but designed after what they believed a futuristic town or home to look like, once again as a nuclear test facility. Okay, we've got that figured out. Now, Black Ops 3. Now, did you notice at the end of that explosion how it said Nuketown offline? That is because the entirety of the Black Ops 3 multiplayer doesn't take place in the real world. It takes place in our characters or the specialist operators' direct neural interfaces, which is essentially a computer put in their brain, and then they can kind of test battle simulations, and one of which was on a nuclear test site in Nuketown, just like we saw in the previous games. The only difference is this one was not a real location, it was inside of a computer. So the origin story of this one doesn't really match with all of the other ones that we're going to look at, but just know that they designed it after the old maps. This will be important later. So the Black Ops 4 version of Nuketown is very different because one, it takes place in Russia, and two, it's not a nuclear test site, but rather a Russian nuclear launch facility. So quite the opposite of what we've seen in Nuketown up until this point. Now, to be clear, I don't know whether this Nuketown is designed by the same people who designed the original Nuketown, and you'll see why I say that in a moment. However, what you do need to know is this takes place in Russia, is a nuclear launch facility, and takes place during the Cold War. Speaking of which, moving next to Black Ops Cold War. The Nuketown from Black Ops Cold War is an interesting one because essentially it's a direct sequel to the original Nuketown. It's essentially the same desert with the same Nuketown with the same layout, but this time it has been taken over by raiders. It is now kind of like their vagabond campground where they stay in the middle of the desert to get cover from the desert heat. So yes, it is the exact same Nuketown, but essentially like 30 years later. So quick summary of the Nuketowns. The Black Ops 3 version of Nuketown takes place in a simulation, so we'll take that one off the table. That's just in a computer. Now, what if I told you that all of the other versions of Nuketown that we have seen prior to this were all made by the exact same group of people? And in fact, what if I told you that there is another version of Nuketown that is already in the game files for Call of Duty Black Ops 6? Well, let me explain. Enter Area 99. This is the new map coming to Warzone at the launch, I believe, of Season 1 for Call of Duty Black Ops 6. If you don't know what Area 99 is, it is the building facility for Nuketown. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, think of a car manufacturing facility, but this time for Nuketowns. They create the buildings, they create the mannequins, and they even create the nukes. This map takes place in the 1950s at the exact same time as the original Nuketown. And you can see based off of the various locations that we have a bunker, we have pods where the workers of Area 99 stay, we have the loading bay where they ship the Nuketown facilities, they have the mannequin assembly where they create all of the mannequins, but most confusingly, they have a reactor core. Now at this point, we don't know whether this is a reactor to generate power for the facility or whether this is a reactor to help them create the nukes for Nuketown themselves. Now, knowing Treyarch and knowing the way that it has designed things, especially Nuketown, we need to know more about this map. Now, unfortunately, I only got like 80 minutes to play on this map, and I didn't really get to explore because everyone was sweating, and I didn't get to look at like all of the different locations and hidden things on the map, but I do know a couple things. First of all, the area that we are in is called Echo Ridge Weapons Station. It takes place in the Nevada desert. We know this. There is no water around this entire map, and in fact, I believe this is the only Warzone map that has zero water on it whatsoever. Or for that fact, isn't an island. It also appears as though one of two things has happened. Either this facility has been abandoned or attacked in one way or another. But there is one big takeaway that we can get from this. See those guys? Yep, them in the background, they created Nuketown. And what we know from this is that map that we played back in the 50s in Call of Duty Black Ops 1 was indeed the original iteration of Nuketown. And eventually, one of those versions of Nuketown out in the Nevada desert eventually began to be run over by homeless, vagabonds, raiders, I don't know what you want to call them, and that is the version of the map that we see in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. And on top of that, moving forward, whoever this company is behind Echo Ridge Weapons Station, they evolved and eventually made the city of the future, or the Nuketown of the future. And that is the version that we see in Black Ops 2. And somewhere along the line, either they began to work with Russia, or on the other hand, someone in Russia started copying what they were doing in Nevada, and they made a separate version, the Russian missile launch facility, not test facility. But then we have Black Ops 6, and if you've seen this screen, you may recognize something down in the bottom left-hand corner. At the very bottom of this lineup of maps, we have our 4 strike maps, the ones that we are going to see in the beta, and some of which we've already have, Pit, Gala, and Stakeout, which is coming next week, but there is one other one by the name of Sandhouse, and if you take a closer look at that image, you may recognize an upside down sign there. So clearly, this is a new version of Nuketown, but it is not called Nuketown, it is called Sandhouse, which is super weird. And as you can see, we are once again out in the desert, assumably in Nevada, and this time you can get inside the bus, something you previously couldn't do on a Nuketown map, and it seems to be pretty small. And even in the destroyed houses that are filled with sand, we can still see mannequins. Now, you may be wondering at this point, what exactly is going on with this map, and is it the Nuketown that we're getting in Black Ops 6? So to be quite honest with you, I don't know. What I do know is this is going to be a strike map, in other words, very, very small, and probably won't be in the normal 6v6 core playlist rotation like we have seen with the other strike maps so far in Black Ops 6. But we do know a little bit more about this map. This is the same version of the map that we have from Black Ops 1, the original Nuketown. And if we go and look at that first image that we saw when we were looking at all of the launch maps, you can actually get a better idea of what has happened here. Very clearly, there is an enormous crater right beside this map. And what this leads me to believe is this is actually Nuketown after the bomb has gone off. The nuke went off slightly beside the Nuketown, and we can see a destroyed blue building, a destroyed yellow building, and the middle of the map is entirely filled with sand. So is this the Nuketown that we will be getting in Black Ops 6? I don't know, but at launch, it's as close to Nuketown as we're going to be getting. So there is the backstory of all of the Nuketown maps, every single one of them, as well as a look at where they were created, Echo Ridge Weapon Station. Now, we don't know who is behind this, if they built all of the iterations, what happened at Area 99, and that is something that I will be looking into more once I get more than like an hour on the actual map. I'm assuming there is going to be Easter eggs riddled throughout this map, just like on Nuketown, and when that happens, I will of course be digging for them. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and turn notifications on. If you like these kind of Call of Duty story videos, be sure to hit that like button and let me know what you think down in the comments. But as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.